We are back at Precision Sound in New York City with my guest, Alex Sterling. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
So I want to talk about studio monitors.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think audiophiles have this idea that they've idealized that studio monitors are more accurate and they're more neutral and true references to hearing what's really going on in a recording. And I go, okay, but there's lots of different monitors. Do they all sound the same?
No. Every speaker from every manufacturer sounds different. Even potentially different pairs of the same speakers might sound different depending on the room that they're in. So, though, really all studio monitors are just regular speakers that some engineers at a company designed, just like audiophile or consumer monitors are the same. Mm-hmm. So design criteria might be different. There might be different objectives that the designer might have. Maybe in the case of the pro audio world, aesthetics might be not as emphasized. You don't really see a lot of kind of outlandish designs with horns and things. In the pro audio world, studio black is kind of the standard finish, but every speaker just will always sound different, and there is no such thing as sort of completely accurate, because a speaker has in-room performance, which is highly variable depending on the acoustic space, but also that's not really that important ultimately, because as a working engineer, I'm not asking the speaker to be accurate. I'm asking the speaker to give me the information I need to make a creative and technical choice. Mm-hmm. So depending on what that choice is, it might be different information.
Mm-hmm. But you have, in this room at least, mm-hmm. you have two monitors. I remember when I first came to your studio, you had Atom Audio.
Yes.
That had folded ribbon tweeters. You don't use those at all anymore?
No, I transitioned from Atom to ATC.
And wait, we should say which model Atom's?
It was Atom S3XH, which is a midfield, three-way midfield. I used those for many years, and I really liked them, and I got a lot of good work out of them. But I sort of felt that they started, I became more sensitive to their sound, as would be the case. You come to know a speaker better over time. But I started to feel that the sound of the upper mid-range was, they were putting a stamp on the music that I was working on, such that it was making me difficult to make decisions about the upper mid-range. Vocals were sounding a little too sibilant. Mixes I was doing maybe were translating a little darker to other systems. And again, the objective of a recording studio playback system is to really get translation. The consumer never hears the music in the studio as much as we might wish them to. They're going to hear it on their earbuds or their car or on a clock radio. Wherever people hear music, that's where it's consumed. It's not consumed in a recording studio. So the sort of highest objective of professional studio monitors is to improve the quality of translation. So that might mean they don't sound very good at all. It might mean that they give you information, that they focus your attention on what's awful about the sound, and then you fix it, and then it translates better. Okay. So accuracy is still a subjective term.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But I had a good question and I lost it. So you have two monitors in this room.
Yeah.
And they are on the left?
This is an Amphion 115, and they're powered by the companion Amphion 100 amp, which is...
It's separate?
Yeah, they're not active. These are passive speakers.
Okay.
And then the main speakers are ATC SCM 100 ASLs, which are active three-ways. And it's a soft dome tweeter, soft dome mid-range, which is ATC's signature, and then what they call their SL spec woofer, which is very low distortion.
And you were saying they make all these drivers in-house now?
This particular speaker was the last run where they didn't make their own tweeters, but all their models subsequent to this, which was probably, I think maybe 2015 or so, are all in-house drivers.
And that is active?
Correct, yeah. You can get amp packs for them separate, but the crossover, it's a whole designed system with the amplifier and crossovers.
So obviously these two speakers sound very different. You can tell right away just by looking at them, right?
Absolutely.
So are you switching between them?
Sure. It's pretty common in a studio environment to use several different sets of speakers to get different information and also for different circumstances. So when I want to hear full range, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, I'll listen on the mains, which have a lot of low-end extension. And when I need high SPL to either get a sense of what the music might sound like loud, or if I need to hear the bass with energy, or if I have an artist in the room and they want to get excited, having a sort of full-range, high-powered system is very useful. In addition, having the ability to manipulate low frequencies with some precision, because I can hear them because the speaker is a large volume cabinet, big woofers, big good low end extension allows me to manipulate the bass.
Right.
But that being said, most music doesn't actually exist in the bass; it exists in the mid range, and sometimes a speaker that's actually has a lower bandwidth. Like the Amphion, for example, which doesn't have the same kind of low-end extension, is a useful tool to focus on other elements within the music. So different speakers might emphasize and steer your attention to different parts of the content, and then you can work on that part of the content because you're not distracted, let's say, by the huge bass.
Interesting. But do you at least for yourself, because something that's always amazed me about how mixing music and movies is so different. With movies, they're mixed at reference level only in the ones I've attended. And that's not true for music mixing, right?
It depends on the engineer. Everyone works a little bit differently. When I was getting started, I was very interested in learning as much as I could, and I came across Bob Katz's book about mastering audio, and Bob has promoted listening at a consistent volume for mastering, and he has a whole host of reasons behind that. But I kind of adopted a similar approach where I basically listen at kind of 2 or 3 fixed volume references, and I move between them depending on what I'm doing and what stage of the process.
But in terms, except for a given project, for a given task, you're always listening at the same level. You're not saying, I'm tired, I got to turn it down, or I want to play it loud to feel the something.
Those two circumstances kind of exist. There's three kind of references. I try to mix around 83, 85 dB SPL most of the time, and I have a calibrated listening environment where I know with a given position of my monitor controller, I'll get X amount. So I do actually
on a fader. You just know that this fader position is the reference level.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, and it is very much like the film world where they mix with a specific SPL reference level to a specific RMS level. I've calibrated my system in a similar way, but unlike in the film world where in many dubbing studios you can't even change the volume of the playback system, unlike in the film world, I do choose to reference at several different levels.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Just to get a sense
exactly
of what's going on.
Sometimes I'll turn it loud and walk into the next room and just hear what it sounds like from the other, the other side of the room. That's actually very useful because you can't hear any stereo image. It's much more ambient. The sort of other room test is a great way of assessing what are you actually getting, kind of
Yeah, as a listener, I've always been amazed by that, how it translates in a different room.
Yeah.
So do you have a home system?
I have my very first set of studio monitors, which were these Tannoy Reveal Actives that I got when I was in high school.
Wow.
And that they are hooked up to my TV, and I never listened to music on them. I just watch TV with them, or movies. Sometimes I reference, but I don't have anything fancy at home.
Okay.
I don't spend any time listening to music at home, really.
Don't you think that's interesting? That because my fantasy, and I should ask Bob Katz about this, is that in previous eras, that recording engineers tended to have really nice hi-fis at home, and now they don't seem to,
Well, they spend more time in the studio than they do at home, so they have their hi-fi.
Right, yeah, they have a great hi-fi in the studio.
Yeah.
Right. So how old are you?
33.
So, and you've attended AES conventions and
Since 2005 when I went to audio school, yeah.
So have you seen how, first of all, the AES conventions in New York get smaller and smaller and smaller at the Javits Center, but that the diversity of men and women is way more women than it used to be, and way more younger people. I mean, in their early mid-20s is way higher. I mean, it used to be all old guys. I mean, it used to be from 50 years up was probably 80% of everybody that it was an AES thing, and now it's reversed. Right now, it's like 80% or under 40, or to pick a number. Is that fair?
I'd say so. The demographics of the industry are definitely changing. One of the things that one trend that I took part in was the democratization of technology, and now that technology with inexpensive personal computers and readily available software is commonplace, it's much easier to enter into a technical field or a creative field that uses technology. So I very much my involvement in audio, I owe to some degree to being able to get a computer and software, when I was a young person, and learning these skills. So I do think that those changes in the audio industry are partly related to now it's much more accessible.
But most of the people in AES now, they don't have jobs in recording studios as I knew them.
Sure.
Right?
There are no
now
jobs
it's
in
more
recording
home studios, right?
Exactly. The traditional large recording studio with a staff is a very rare thing these days.
Even in New York, it's relatively rare, right?
Extremely rare. When I was getting my start fresh out of audio school, I was trying to get jobs, but it was right in the mid-2000s when all the studios had started shutting their doors. So I actually had no choice except to sort of hang my shingle and start my own business and try freelancing, which is what I've been doing ever since. So many of these people at AES are probably in a similar circumstance.
Right.
They have home studios, or they're doing music production remotely in different ways. And again, now you can do stuff on a laptop that will sell records.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But to me, one of the differences, though, is that, and again, I'm not speaking from direct experience, so I'm asking you that there are less professional recording engineers in the sense that that's their job. It's your job to do this, right? You're not also like a gardener or something.
No, it's my full-time work.
But a lot of the people that are AES were before they were all like, that was their gig, that was their life, was being a recording engineer, mastering, whatever. And now that's not true, right? I assume that some of them are musicians or do other things, and they have a home studio or something, right?
Sure. Well, almost every audio engineer that I know, and myself included, became interested in audio sort of first through music in some form or another.
Right. You play, right?
Yeah, I was kind of a failed musician in some sense. I was too lazy to practice an instrument, so I decided it'd be easier to click a mouse on the screen. And
that's good.
so in a way, my laziness led me into my ultimate passion.
Well, I guess it worked out.
It did. But everybody kind of starts in some way with an interest in music making. And so many people that I work with, maybe they've done some home recording and they need to go to a professional environment to finalize it. Maybe because they're a professional musician, but they might have some recording ability, but maybe their foremost skill is performance, that they want to work with somebody who is, their foremost skill is engineering. So again, music is collaborative, and everybody brings sort of what you can to the table.
But were you ever at Walter Sears' studio?
Sure.
Right? What an amazing guy he is. I wish I made a video with him. He passed away a few years ago. But I remember being there, and he had this huge collection of microphones, right? 100, maybe more.
And he leaves them out.
He leaves them out. They're on mic stands, ready to go. And so in that environment, the engineer could, listen to, let's say, a vocalist, and then choose among, maybe 10 mics that were suitable, right? And maybe even try 3 or 4 of them, right? And that's less and less possible. That a given
Yeah.
studio would have that kind of choice of microphones and mic preamps and all that
It
other
depends
stuff.
on the size of the studio and the kinds of projects that are being worked on there. A lot of small project studios, for budget reasons or for convenience, might have sort of a go-to vocal mic. Here at Precision Sound, we have really strived to bring the full large studio experience into the modern world. So we have a big collection of equipment. You know, we have great microphones to choose from. So there is still a lot of the old way, so to speak, that's applied. But again, a lot of records are being made in more casual circumstances, and so you know it varies really project to project.
Yeah, I'm sure. But so I think if we missed anything about the original idea for this video about
Different
using speakers and monitors and knowing what's going on. So it's like in the old days, studios had really big monitors, like Uri monitors up over the console, and that's less and less true. Is Uri still in business?
I don't believe so, no.
Because that whole market for big studio monitors is kind of over.
You might be surprised that the big manufacturers, ATC, PMC, Genelec, Dyne Audio, you know, they're still making big speakers for installations in the larger studios. I mean, and so there are still many studios being constructed. Oceanway, another example. There are many studios being built. I think probably there's more studios being built today than there were maybe in the last 15 years, to be honest.
Oh, that's hopeful.
It is very hopeful. I think there is a lot of interest in people having their own space, and the quality of personal studios has also been increasing substantially. Again, with the more ready availability of high quality audio equipment and inexpensive but high quality audio equipment, you can put together a very high performance system for not a tremendous investment. And if you do some acoustic treatment, or you are reasonably handy with building acoustic treatments, you can make a great sounding space, without spending $1 million.
Well, but I just have another angle to think about here is that what about headphones? Since so many more people listen to music on headphones now than definitely ever before.
Well, in addition to my speakers, I just happen to have two sets of headphones that I also use. One is the Audeze LCD-X,
right.
Open back, planar magnetic, and then the other is the kind of ancient model, Sennheiser HD600. These were my father's, and I stole them from him.
Oh, wow. A lot of people think the 600 is better than the 650.
I happen to agree.
Yeah, coincidentally.
So I use a Grace headphone amp, and to me, between these sort of four systems, I kind of get basically everything I need. I mean, sometimes I do listen on the Apple earbuds, the wired ones. I actually think, this might sound strange, but I actually think they sound fantastic.
No.
They really do. I don't know, maybe it's just my ears being in the studio too long, but between those references, I get pretty much everything I want.
Do the clients want to hear a headphone sound as well?
Many of them want to hear on Apple earbuds because many millions of people are going to hear their mix that way. So I find that a useful tool.
And then they request changes? So to make
that has happened. Yeah, sometimes I'll be in the last stages of a mix, and the client or the producer will be on headphones, and they'll be shouting out, adjustments that I'll do on the console or in the software. Or we'll make a list, not necessarily shouting it out, but absolutely. Sometimes very, very subtle adjustments get made based on these final little assessments.
And then you go back to the speakers and see how that translates?
For sure, yeah. I mean, usually by the time I've gotten a mix to where it wants to be, I'm making extremely subtle adjustments. We're talking half decibel level changes, or quarter decibel EQ changes. It's rare that at that final stage we're making any kind of serious decisions. So there is an idea that I've come to subscribe to, which is there's actually many versions of correct. And there isn't just one way for the music to sound. And so when I'm satisfied with what I've done in a mix, I'm very comfortable letting the client sort of steer it one way or the other, and I know it's still going to be good. So it's more about tailoring that last few percent to their preference, and it'll translate because the drums and the bass
and of course, but wait, but they also can take it home and listen, and then come back to you and say, oh, when I was playing it on my boombox, I didn't like this or that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, in getting mixed feedback from a client, it's always really important to understand how did they hear the music, what was the circumstance, what was the playback system, what's the environment, what is leading them to make the conclusion that they've come to.
And if you think it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the artist is never wrong per se because it's their art, so they have a vision for it, and we're just trying to facilitate them achieving that vision and creating that vision. So there's sort of never anything wrong. One might have an aesthetic disagreement, or one might need to inform the artist about a danger zone of maybe saying, oh, well, where's the bass? If you were listening on earbuds, there's no bass. So be careful not to worry too much about the bass if you're listening on your iPhone speaker with no bass. Once in a while, you have to educate and inform people to help them make better decisions about things. But usually, that kind of feedback, usually the feedback I'm getting from an artist is more aesthetic feedback as opposed to sort of feedback that would make something technically wrong or something translate poorly.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
My name's Steve Guttenberg, the Audiophiliac. My guest today you're still Alex Sterling.
Yep.
And we are Precision Sound in New York City. And I hope to see you guys back here again very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching.